something else I noticed you changing as you got more confidence to do what you were doing.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, you're on your way.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay.
Yes.
We really are. Michelle.
Yes. Is it this one?
Yeah.
Mm.
And I wanna take.
Are we gonna have issues with your volume if we do this on your
Do you want me?
computer?
I'm disconnecting the audio if you guys want. Which
I
mic
think it's
do you
fine
want
to
to
leave it this way. You just have to make sure you speak loudly so
Okay.
she can hear you through there.
Got it. Dokes. I'm using another camera so she can see what I'm pointing at.
Oh, you got another camera setup going on over
It's
there.
over there.
Do you want to bring it closer?
Oh, yeah.
My eyes have bags.
You need some sleep.
Okay.
It's like I'm looking at myself going, God.
Where is my cursor? This is weird. Oh, here it is. Okay, so yeah. Okay.
I would bring this even closer. I know you're trying to do the screen, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I do it real quick and then I'll show it.
Okay. Or no. I think I need a box to put it on top. Wait, maybe? No. I think it should work. Oh, I know what to. Sorry.
That's fine, because she can see your screen too.
Yeah, and I wanna show you something also. Here, when you build these,
Mhm.
you don't want that showing
Yeah.
and that. So you double click on here and you can crop it to your image.
Oh, okay.
See, so then you get a cleaner presentation.
Oh,
Like
okay.
that.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. So. Okay. Sorry. Wait.
That does look like hot stuff.
It does. I saved this for the presentation. So, hi everyone, welcome. My name is Michelle and I'm gonna present you guys something that's really spicy today. And it's called Hot Spell. So, starting off with this journey, I'd like to ask everyone if anyone has ever heard this term before? Okay, wow.
From you.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Okay. But I've never generally explained it to you guys what it is. So it's actually a Indonesian chili sauce or paste, and why it's different is that most people would see this as a chili sauce or a regular sriracha sauce that you would see at restaurants, but generally speaking, it's not. And why do I say this? There's another reason to it, and we're gonna get to it after this. So the question would be, why do a book ensemble? Why do a book on something you see every single day? So during the time that we had to research something that we could talk about in the book, I was thinking about the things I was eating when I was thinking about the book. And then I realized no one really talked about the importance of this so-called sambal. So in my head, I think this has something to do that I've never researched before. So I put my curiosity into it, and then I come to realize that when I ask people about it, they start showing me their values to it. That was another surprising factor that I didn't know, that people would appreciate food that much, especially in this case, it would be categorized as a condiment. Like, who would have thought a condiment could make such a huge role in culinary or even history? So with that being said, I concluded my thought when I first started the research is that the sambal doesn't just add variety to what you're gonna eat, but it also adds flavor to it. So I started my research about it, and then I looked up different types of sambal. We have like the dry ones, we have sauce based, we have cooked ones, and we have the ones that you can mix with greens and you can mix with fruits, which is not commonly found when you eat chilies. You just eat it by itself. So this is what the sambal looks around Indonesia. And then I wondered another question when I looked at it is like, what makes sambal so different? And then I realized that the history behind it was really complicated. That's why people weren't really, want to discuss it. And that was my loophole to actually bring that out, and also connecting to the concept of decolonizing, which we all learn in class, that history by itself doesn't really represent the whole story. So it's our duty as designers to try to put that back on the book. So in terms of general information, Indonesia was colonized by many countries, and they got out of all of that in 1945. And out of all the countries that actually colonized us, the Dutch Indies were the longest to stay. And so based on the 6 countries, the Dutch, Japan, Spain, United Kingdom, which is formerly known as the Great Britain back then, Portuguese, and France, the Dutch took 350 years to colonize entirely around Indonesia. So after looking into the history of how, when you make sambal, you need the spices, and this country in particular showed up as like the main idea of they took control of the country before it was Indonesia. I then came up with another question on my mind map that says, why does this have to do with sambal? Like, what's the interconnection between the history, the cruelty, and this condiment or this special sauce that no one really talks about? Because it has everything to do with it and how it's created during that time. So I went even further to actually interview someone that was a Dutch Indonesian descent, and he then told me that where he was growing up, which is in Ambon, it's in the eastern part of Indonesia, he mentions that it was actually the first island that the Dutch Indies first came and started scouting around the country. And he learned that in the history lessons that he took, that most of the spices were seized by the Dutch Indies, so they had full control for trading purposes. So they gained profit out of taking someone else's spices. And I realized that sambal was also something that he cannot live without, and later learned that different communities have their own version, and they wouldn't eat without it, or they would consider it as a not so complete meal. So based on the question I asked him, and then he further told me about his parents, that sambal used to be a lower class food source because of how little resources they have during the colonization, because basically the Dutch Indies took everything from them. So from the interview, I lined up the things that they took from the country, and it was around the cinnamon, clove, cumin, cardamom, turmeric, pepper, and nutmeg. And then during the research and the ideas that were compiled to it, I realized that basically all the sectors of trade were taken over and was built with the Dutch standards, and it still stands up till today. So the way that most Indonesian people are doing it for trade purposes are still following the footsteps of our colonizer. And the last things that weren't really mentioned on history books and articles were chilies, garlic, shallots, lemongrass, and all those